Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Beyond the Album Cover with your boy Jay Mace, where we get inside the entertainment industry with those in the know and give flowers to those while they're here to be celebrated. Right now with me, I have two fire MCs that spit nothing but that. 16 bars, give it to you how you want it, five fingers of death, all that and whatnot. But they're doing it for God and for the kingdom. Ladies and gentlemen, I have 360 and my man B Down from the rap group The Org. Welcome to Beyond the Album Cover, fellas.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, man.
Man, I appreciate you guys taking the time. So first off, I want to go with B Down. Tell me a little bit about yourself, how you came to be and how did rapping come about, and then 360 after he finishes, same question for you.
Cool.
I guess for me, I grew up in that era where like my first memories was this guy on the corner used to bring out two turntables every day, summertime. I might have been like 9 or 10, and then from there, people break dancing, the graffiti, everything with the whole nine. That was early 80s. That was like 83, 84. That was kind of early.
Okay. All right. And for you, 360?
Yeah, we definitely from the golden era, man. Where true MCing was everything. We grew up where you don't have lyrics. You ain't gonna be mumbling and all that stuff. You really gotta rock. So that's where we grew up, and that's what attracted us to hip hop, man.
So no biting allowed. You had to come with your own style, and pretty much you started off with a crew either breaking, MCing, graffitiing, and if you were an MC, you better have hot bars when you were in that cycle.
That's right.
Definitely.
All right. So can even one of you remember the first rap record that you purchased?
Mm.
I can go first.
Go ahead, man.
The first album or single?
Either album or 12-inch, either one.
I'm gonna go with something 12-inch that people gonna be like, wow, I remember that record. It was a dope record. You remember Fly Girls by the Boogie Boys?
Yeah, Sly Fox ended up sampling that for Let's Go All the Way.
Yes, that was the first rap record I ever bought, ever.
Taking it back right there. How about for you, 360, first rap record or 12-inch?
Yeah, mine was Sugar Hill Gang, man. It was either The Message or one of those, but it was Sugar Hill.
Sugar Hill. And speaking of which, Sugar Hill Records was based out of Jersey, which is where you guys are from. B Down, you were born in Queens, lived there till about 9 till you moved to Newark, and 360 Newark native. So tell us about the impact of Jersey, not only in the music business with Sugar Hill Records, but of all the great MCs that came out of Jersey's over the years, from Queen Latifah, Naughty, Redman, Lords of the Underground.
Shout out to Sylvia Rome. Yeah, that's kind of crazy that you mentioned that. That's the northern part of Jersey. I think that's either Teaneck or Edgewater. Edgewater is in that area, but that's where the first thing, first steps of anything hip hop related was basically out of Jersey from a standpoint of physically on wax.
Yeah, and everybody you just named, man, from Jersey that you just listed, they know about bars. They know that you got to come right. You can't be in Jersey just saying crazy stuff, because it was true MCing back then. Now, they do what they do, but it was completely true MCing back then. That's it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I got Reggie Noble in my top 5 DOA rappers. His verse on Headbanger, for me, it was right up there with K Solos.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's right.
Get your disco tape of Sam Goody. Yo, where's my hoodie? If you know, you know.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
And Red, you know what? I commend you on that, man, because Red said, if you're going to come out and it's like your first time being heard, or your first day ever, heard anything about you, you want to make people say, who is that? So when he came with all them R's and Red Man, ready to rock, rough rhymes, renegade rapper, it was all R's, and he was not playing. so
he was not
on that one.
No, he
I
was
love
not.
Red.
Yeah, the What D album, Muddy Waters, everything that he's came out, and this was back during the era when if you were on a feature, you knew you were nice if you were last up to bat. Look at Busta Rhymes and the Scenario remix. And if you have not listened to that ELE2, go listen to that.
I downloaded it. I downloaded it the other day. It's a hot record.
Yeah, it's a dope record. I have that, T.I.'s Libra, and then Jadakiss album Ignatius as my top 3 rap albums of the year so far.
Okay.
Nice.
For the whole year? Nice. Okay.
Yeah, with an honorable mention going to Big Sean in Detroit 2. That was
Okay.
a banger as well. So what was your guys' take on, okay, New York is dominating, and then Jersey starting to make noise, like with who I mentioned earlier with Naughty, Queen, Lords of the Underground, Apache, rest in peace. And do you think that Jersey always been in the shadow of New York MCs and had trouble with carving out their own identity and just feeling like, hey, we're just as nice as New York?
Definitely. Shout out to the Flavor Unit. I mean, you shout out the Flavor Unit. If you go back even further, Twin Hype, shout out Twin Hype too. So it was more or less like back then what people was doing was trying to just, mention the borough that they was from. I've heard a lot of Jersey rappers say that they was from Brooklyn and stuff like that just to get more attention. So it was definitely rough in the beginning as far as carving out their own niche. So it's like now when you see other places like down south and it's our time to shine, that whole movement with the hip hop is in the South and this and that, I kind of understand it because New York in the beginning was, I created it. This is mine. There's nothing anybody else could do with it.
How about for you, 360?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, man. It was kind of like we had to find our own niche because New York run things, and that's the Bronx started it and all that stuff. That's why I said in Jersey, lyrics was everything because it was like
everything.
Yeah, they like who is this? Who is this dude? But if the lyrics tight, they didn't care where you was from, So we had to be extra. And by the way, I hope we make that top 3 when this album drops. I want to be in that top 3 you was naming, man. Somebody got to move over, or either you're gonna have a top 4.
Yeah, we can have a top 4, we can have a top 5, we can get it in. And I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a fun fact for those of you who don't know about your hip-hop history. Naughty by Nature, they were originally signed to Sugar Hill Records, and they were under a name called The New Style.
That's right.
And they put out, I believe it was a 12-inch, and then that didn't really make any moves. And then they later came out with Naughty, with Hip Hop Array, OPP, and they did the Soul Train theme from 93 to I want to say maybe 03, 04. So shout out to KG, Tretch, and Vinny, still getting them checks. And if you look at Juice, Tretch was in Juice with Tupac rolling around with his crew.
That's right. That's right.
Good brother too. Real good brother. Good brother.
Humble dude, man. Humble dude. I love Tretch.
All of them are. All of them.
Definitely.
And then another thing I should mention too, I forgot to mention, shout outs goes to Poor Righteous Teachers out of Jersey as well, kicking the knowledge, the science from 5% Nation.
Definitely.
So can you tell us about how big of an influence was the 5%ers and that whole movement during the golden era hip hop, when hearing Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian, Eric B. and Rakim?
You want to answer that one, Doc? Or I can go first, but it's up to you.
I'm just gonna say on that PRT, we love them, man. I grew up. I didn't know all the 5% rules and all that, but I respect them. And PRT was ridiculous to me. To this day, when you play that Rock This Funky Joint, you're gonna sit back and respect that, no matter when it is. That's what I was gonna say about that.
And most definitely, is from. We always was believers, even if you don't believe in what we believe in, you got to always respect people when it comes to religion and politics. And, as you can see right now with the 46 win, it's just a hectic time. So you got to always be respectful of what people think. And, I know back then, if you was portraying to be a 5% or the gods or 7%ers or whatever, that if you didn't know your lessons that you were supposed to know, that the issues, the beatdowns was serious, that stuff like that. I was aware of that.
Yeah, and I was unaware about a lot of the 5% stuff because I was, 5, 6 years old at the time when all of that was going on. But going back and listening to a lot of those records and then looking at the Wu Tang series on Hulu, they were
Hmm.
heavy into the 5%, with RZA
Definitely,
and Jizza. So if you go back and listen to End of the Wu, the 36 Chambers, even ODB stuff, that was dropping a lot of the signs and the math from the 5% Nation.
Hmm.
definitely, definitely.
And what was your thoughts when you first heard Wu Tang? Because everybody thinks Staten Island is the forgotten borough, and you got 9 MCs that are stars in their own right. But somehow RZA convinced everybody, hey, let's form a group, show what we can all do, and then go to Loud, Steve Rifkin, and say, hey, we don't want to have right of first refusal on Loud. We want to be able to
Hmm.
make solo deals on separate labels.
It was genius. I got a funny Wu Tang story. Wu Tang album came out the same day as Midnight Marauders. Same day because I ended up buying both of those albums on the same day. And Wu Tang album was so dope when I first heard it that I didn't even give Tribe their due. It was like Tribe album was. I was like, everybody was like, nah, it don't sound right. But then once you go back and you review that, and that was a classic too. So it was like both those albums on the same day came out, and they both was phenomenal records.
Hmm.
Phenomenal.
Rest in peace, Five. And the funny thing about Tribe, with me being younger than you all, when I was looking at the Beats, Rhyme, and Life documentary, I didn't know about
Hmm.
Jerobi until then. And then they said that he already had verses and everything for Low End Theory, but ended up
Hmm.
leaving the group to go towards his second passion, which is the culinary arts. But he was on the debut, which was
Yes,
People Instinctives.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes. I see
So
you do your research. I'm
Yeah, he
impressed by
do.
that.
Yeah, he do.
man, I know my stuff, man. I grew up watching
Yeah,
BET, MTV, Rap City,
yeah, yeah.
Chris Thomas, Dejour, Big Lash, Joe Claire, Yo MTV Raps, Fat Five Freddy, Ed Lover, Dr. Dre. Not Dr. Dre from the West Coast, but
No,
DJ Dr. Dre,
yeah.
who was originally in the rap group Original Concept.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if you was in the metropolitan area, there's another one that was huge, a huge impact was Video Music Box.
Uncle Ralph, shout out to Uncle Ralph, and
Yeah,
you can go check out my throwback
huge.
interview with Lionel Vid Kid Martin. You can hear about Video Music Box and the whole 9 yards. Now, what was your take? This is like around, I wouldn't say 91, 92, and West Coast started to make its way nationally. Before then, it really wasn't getting played anywhere outside of the West Coast. But once Dr. Dre, Snoop, Warren G, everything started to come, what was your take on that? Because that whole sound was totally different because the beats per minute was a lot higher for New York East Coast rap, while for the West Coast, it was more slow,
A little slow.
easy,
Yeah, mellow.
because the West Coast is very laid back.
Hmm.
For me, I listen. I never got caught up in that East Coast, West Coast. If you was dope, you was dope.
Hmm.
So it was just like, you know what? Somebody in another part of the country is telling their story, and I loved it. And to this day, I love it.
How about for you,
Hey, but
360?
yeah, man. I meant to ask you, man. You had a great question, but before I answered this one, your question of what was the first thing, the first album, hip hop that you bought, the first single. What's yours?
My first rap album I remember getting, it was License to Ill on cassette, Beastie Boys.
Okay,
Wow.
okay. I was
Okay.
listening to that the other day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a chance
Rick
to
Rubin.
interview Cut Creator, and he was telling me a lot of stories about being on tour with them and the whole story of Def Jam and Beastie Boys. It was interesting to see their evolution going from, frat house, party rap on License to Ill, and then Paul's Boutique, then later Check Your Head, Hello
Hmm.
Nasty, and to see how they evolved not only as MCs, but
Yeah.
as men as well, and now gonna pivot back out west. And just recently, about a week ago, Social Mischief just put their documentary on their page, 93 to Infinity. And I always thought that Souls of Mischief and the Howard Griffiths crew don't get enough props.
Hmm.
Nah, I like Del, the funky Hobo
Homo
Sapien.
sapien.
Yeah, oh my God. The first album, it was a George, something with George in it. Mr. Dabalina and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Those was great records. And we like I said, we never got caught up in all that. if you could be from Portland, like the guys that's Griseldas from Buffalo,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it just shows that people all over just love the art form.
And I didn't answer that question, man, on the slow flow and everything else. West Coast, you're right. That was a whole different thing to my ears, man. When they first dropped, it was like, you know, and Snoop album was so crazy, and
Bananas.
yeah, it's bananas. Every song connected with the last song, and it was just one straight album. And I was like, it's slow, but man, I was like, yo, this is different, because New York is just up tempo, but that was slow.
But even to add on to that, you know, we forgetting, you got to go back to the DOCs, the NWAs, the King T's,
yeah,
you know, stuff like that. So, you know, even the Quick. So early on, when I heard No One Could Do It Better, man, that was like, that to me was the record besides NWA record.
That album, had he not gotten into his accident, he would have been
huge.
top five.
Huge.
That album, top to bottom, the skits, the production, Dr. Dre, LA Dre.
Huge.
I mean, they put their foot
crazy
in that album, which was crazy.
Huge.
And also, we got to give big shout outs, big mentions to Nasty Ness out in Seattle with what was going on with Sir Mix-a-Lot, because a lot of people thought Sir Mix-a-Lot just had Baby Got Back and put it on the glass, but no, he had Beepers, My Posse's on Broadway, My Hoopty, and Seattle is more than just grunge, Nirvana, and everything that came out of there.
Mm-hmm. And you know, Ness is a good friend of ours. Ness worked our first record for us, Backbone. So Ness is always good by us. Good friend, good brother. Shout out to Nasty Ness.
Yeah, very dope. I had a chance to interview Nasty Ness as well, and that's available on YouTube. And then we also got to mention, you know, Mellow Mayonnaise, Mentirosa, Kid Frost, La Raza. And it's just the beautiful thing about hip hop is that no matter what region of the country you're in, everybody had their own different sound, whether it was out west, you know, E40, Too Short, all of the rappers that we mentioned, either in Southern California or the Bay Area. You got Houston, Ghetto Boys, Jay Prince, everything that was coming out of Rap-A-Lot. UGK out of Port Arthur, Texas, rest in peace, Pimp C. Then you had Memphis with 3 6 Mafia, 8 Ball, MJG, DJ Spanish Fly. And then Atlanta, of course, with everything came out of there with LaFace, Outkast, Goody Mob, Dungeon Family, T.I. So what was your take on when Outkast first came out with 7-Playeristic and how it kind of felt like the South had a hard time breaking outside of the Southern U.S. until, you know, more mainstream exposure? Then Andre 3000 went on the Source Awards and said, you know, the South got something to say. And decades later, the South is still saying what needs to be said.
That album it just solidified that, you know, as far as the live instrumentation, and Outkast was just always different. They just took chances. And the thing that I respected, like the way we came up, and like 3 was telling you earlier, is that we came from a school where you had to be different. You didn't want to sound like anybody. They was down south guys. They was dope. I just thought that album was crazy. It was a crazy album.
Yeah. How about for you, 360, thoughts on Outkast and the whole Southern movement?
Yeah, man, 100%. I agree. They went in their own lane. You know what I mean? And when you go in your own lane, you saying something, man. And they went in their own lane.
And the crazy thing about Outkast was, for Players Ball, it was originally released as a Christmas single on the LaFace record label compilation Christmas album. Remember those? And the record took off so huge that L.A. Reid told them, hey, you guys got to put out an album. And then we have 7-Playeristic, and then everything else that came out of Atlanta. And for those of you that don't know, Sleepy Brown, 1/3 of Organized Noise, along with Rico Wade and Ray Murray, his dad was in the 70s band Brick.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his dad was in the band Brick. And it's just crazy to see how now, you know, everything is just all expansive, you know. And me being from North Carolina, I'm happy to see my home state finally getting some love, some recognition on the music scene, you know, with J. Cole and Rhapsody, you know, we had Little Brother, you know, and it's definitely good to see North Carolina being well represented. And I was looking at your bio, B-Down, you had worked on the Dricky Graham project that was Snapback and Tattoos, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I believe Dricky Graham was from is from Oxford, North
He
Carolina.
is. He is. He spent his mom's lives in Oxford and his father lives in North. So he had the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
I spoke to him the other day. I spoke to him maybe last week sometime. He's doing good. He's doing good. He's in Florida right now.
Dope. Yeah. So when I saw Oxford, I was like, oh snap! I pass by Oxford every time when I go to college in Greensboro. So that's a little bit of a connection there. And then while we're on the mention of New Jersey, I'll be remiss if I did not mention these two R&B groups out of New Jersey, Today and Riff.
Yeah.
Today
True.
and Riff. Big Bub vocally is like
Big
Luther
Bub.
Vandross meets New Jack Swing.
Big Bub from Inglewood. Yeah. Inglewood. Hey, your hip hop history game is crazy, man. I said, does he have a script with these names?
No,
because it's crazy.
No script. All off the dome. All off the dome.
Your hip hop history game is bananas. He got to have a script. Where's it all coming from with all these names?
Man, it just comes from, years of just loving the music, watching Video Soul, BET, and just soaking up information. I'm a historian of music and just grew up listening to all the good stuff, from BDP, the Juice Crew, to Eric B and Rakim, X-Clan, Egyptian Lover, LA Dream Team, World Class Wrecking Crew, Mojo, who was the first Atlanta rapper, MC Shy-D, so I'm a fan of it all, man, and a true historian.
All that's in your head, man. That's amazing to me, man. Respect due on that. Respect due.
I appreciate it. So within the genre of Christian hip hop, how does Christian hip hop try to find its way to make it feel where it's like, okay, we don't want to be too preachy. We want to be respected for our lyrical content and not make it feel like you're listening to a sermon on wax? Because when I went back and listened to Gospel Gangsta's first album, Gang Affiliated, I was like, this is just as hard as anything Dre or DJ Quick would do. And they were spitting about God.
Yeah, we agree, man. We think that's the key. We think the key is, first of all, the music got to be tight because people ain't moving their head if it's a weak beat, and then the MC should be so nice you don't even realize what's going on till you say, oh, this about God, and you get caught up in it, and it's a beautiful thing because to us it's nothing higher than representing God. So if you're using your craft that he gave you and you done brought people in, and before they know it, they listening and talking about God, and it's deep because MCing can do that. A real MC and a nice beat, you can do it. So we respect that.
Yeah. How about for you, B-Down?
You got to keep the element raw. You got to keep it. You got to spit just as hard as you was for the world when you was out there. You got to do the same thing as a Christian. It's no different because at the end of the day, it's all about what you say and in the life you live. You gotta the elements still got to be raw. You got to do it the way you always did it.
Yeah, you got to walk it and you got to talk it. Now, how did you guys link up to form the org? And any one of you all can take this question.
It was this gentleman that his name was DJ Sue. He did something on that album, and he formed a super group mostly for everybody that lived in the Newark area. So all his clients formed this super group, and we all got together and called it the org. At that time, it meant the organization.
And we actually had, I know we was giving respect earlier to Wu. Man, we had a Wu in Newark.
It was crazy.
We had a Wu. Now, all due respect to Wu, we love him, but we had one in Newark that was insane. Everybody spit different, but everybody was fire, and they was coming. And if you ain't coming, you ain't on the record. It was so many in the crew that people got bounced off records every day.
Yeah, you was fighting for your spot on that record with your verse.
So it was like you were golf in the room, write your 16. Whoever had the hottest 16 got on the record.
Everybody get a chance, but whoever was the dopest stayed on it, and we was all fighting to stay on them records.
It's all love. Don't get mad. It's all love. It's all love. It's all love.
But I got bounced off a few.
That was life, man. We all wanted to have the best beats and this and that, but you can't all fit. So we banged it out. We banged it out.
So was
That's
this still
it.
kind of like back in the days when you had the home studio setup where maybe the vocal booth was the closet or the bathroom? Somebody had an MPC or Insonique sampler hooked up, or a DAT machine, or a drum pad. So was it like the home setup, or was it more like the professional studio where you were kind of crowdfunding money to pay for the studio time? Because studio time was not cheap back in those days.
Nah, I would say it was a home professional studio, because from even everything from the walls to the paint, the details, it was done right.
Yeah,
it was done right.
Yeah.
So he had, my guy had advanced to another level where he was, past the just starting out stage. It was definitely professional.
And while we're on the subject of New York hip hop, we talked about earlier Video Music Box, Ralph McDaniels, and Lionel Martin, but we cannot mention the impact of New York hip hop without mentioning DJ Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out, and the late Mr. Magic, Mr. Magic's Rap Attack. So can you tell the audience about the impact of those two separate radio shows, and how if your record got broke on one of those, you were about to be on your way?
It was, man, back then, Mr. Magic would have this segment where you hear, like, on Marley, whoever was playing the records, you would hear world premiere. So when you heard that, you got your tape deck ready.
Premiere.
You heard that, you got your tape decks ready. I used to be outside playing, and I would just run in the house getting ready to tape. And if I fell asleep, I hit the tape button, and whatever I came up with the next morning and heard, that's what it was. But we would tape everything back then.
That's right. And when you come
everything.
out, that's right. When you come out the house the next day, whoever had the hottest tape, man, we would say, his tape is crazy, because you gotta catch it. You fall asleep, you missing hot stuff, man. Hot.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that paid for somebody's sneakers. You were selling for like maybe $5-10 a pop, and was getting your sneaker money, your video game money, or going to Dapper Dan, trying to get your custom Dapper Dan MCM suit, get your custom interiors or whatever. So that's the one thing about New York that I always appreciated being from the South, is that whatever New York did, other regions tried to add their own flavor to it, but still respecting that New York is where it all started. And what Teddy Riley did with New Jack Swing, with meshing R&B and hip hop, it was unheard of. So what was your thoughts on, let's say, when Guy, I'll Be Sure, Keith Sweat drop, and you have these hard rap beats over melodic R&B hooks?
Loved it. It was just creative. It's back, in those periods from, you had 45, you had Bomb Squad, you had these great producers, and they all had their moment. So that New Jack Swing was just, it was all about the club. It was about partying. It was just great records. Just loved it. It was different.
You bringing back good memories and good times, man.
Because even with that, sorry to interrupt you, is the fashion played a part, because the music had to match the fashion. So it was more or less like, this goes back to being creative and being different and innovative. Your fashion, if you saw somebody with the same stuff while you was out, you would be pissed. You wanted to be different.
That's right.
That's why you went to the Dapper Dan stores and the Gucci's and the MCMs. People was doing their seats like that in their cars. They just took it to the next level. So it was always about the music and the fashion just work hand in hand together.
And I believe there's a documentary coming out about the Rooftop in Harlem, which is an infamous, should I say, skater rink. And that was where a lot of, I'll just say, activity went on. And that's where Teddy, got his start with production of Audio 2's Rap New Generation, which led to Kumo D, Go See the Doctor, and everything else that he produced. And also, I got to give credit and mention to Mr. Bernard Bell, who, alongside Teddy, wrote and produced a lot of those big records. And Bernard Bell, the brother of Regina Bell.
Nice.
And it's crazy with 90s fashion, how it's coming back in, Cross Colors, Carl Kanai, African American College Alliance, fashions that I remember vividly as a child. When I told my wife, when she got me a Cross Colors hoodie for Christmas last year, I told her, you don't know how bad I wanted to wear Cross Colors when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. and now I get to finally live that. I was like, where's my B put my issue of YSB magazine?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's
Good
what's
days.
good days. And that's what's so crazy about it is that, you know, everything that's old is new again. And I feel like with the new wave of hip hop now and how with the internet, the world is smaller, you get your conscious hip hop, like the golden era, but you also get your trap hip hop, you get your world hip hop based on other sides of the globe. And it's just one big melting pot where we're not all isolated anymore. We're actually more together now because of a computer and high-speed internet.
It's good and bad because then even with that, you got more access. Things get oversaturated.
I
So it's
definitely
like you
agree
got
with the
from
oversaturation.
and for promotion standpoint, you got to go even harder because it's like almost like as soon as your record comes out, 2 minutes later, somebody else comes out. And you just get pushed further to the back.
Yeah, so it almost kind of sort of feels like you got to constantly drop content because it's very by the minute. And for those of you that are too young to remember shopping a demo, here's how the process goes. You make a demo either in a studio or home studio, put it on a cassette tape or a DAT. Remember DATs? Put it on one of those two. And then you would either look on the back of the cassette, on the back of the album, hope that the label's address was on it, write the address down, send your demo in, or be bold enough to walk into the label like LL and Crush Groove, hit the box, and do an audition in front of execs and try to get on. And that was how you did it back in those days.
Right.
Yeah, but it never worked because at the end of the day, nobody wasn't listening to that stuff. I found out later from A&Rs and stuff. It was more or less about you just had to have a relationship. And that's why everybody kind of stuck with one producer because the producers was the ones that was really getting you those deals back then.
So it's like getting good with somebody and hopefully, you know, they can work it for you.
Yeah, like, you know, Juice Crew, BDP, you had the Hilltop Hustlers in Philly. You had just different crews everywhere. And, you know, that one producer normally from like the Prince Pauls to they all had the label affiliations. So
and you
like a stamp of approval.
Yeah, that cosign. And you mentioned Prince Paul, and I also would want to mention Large Professor from Main Source and how they were using, I believe it was the MPC, I want to say. And it was to where the sampling time was so low that if you played a record at its regular speed, you wouldn't get a lot of sample time, but they figured out ways to manipulate the machine in order to get more sampling time. So what I was always impressed with was how a lot of those early producers like Teddy, Marley Marl, Prince Paul, Large Professor, they would use the machine and with the limitations of the day was able to make art.
Just geniuses. Those guys is just, you know, the primos of the world, you know, even back then, just being just creators, just geniuses. You know, 45 King is a genius. I saw certain things with my own eyes. Granddaddy IU is a genius.
Let's talk about 45 King, the 900 number. If you know your hip hop, you know the 45 King. And I believe didn't he produce Queen Latifah's first single, and it was called Princess of the Posse, right?
Yeah, he did that, and I think some of the stuff on her first album. I think it was the All Hail the Queen album.
That was with Coming to My House, right?
Yeah, he did
she ran with him in the early years.
Yeah.
What'd you say, B?
Yeah, I said he, you know, all the early young Flavor Unit stuff, and he was a tour DJ for the whole first run. I think there was the Kid and Play tours. He has videos of Tupac and everything, like legendary.
Wow.
Pioneer for sure. Pioneer.
That's dope. And you're speaking of touring, also that was another way to kind of cut your teeth in the business was to get on somebody's tour as a roadie, you know, with Tupac being a roadie for Digital. And then I think wasn't Tretch kind of doing roadie stuff with Queen before Naughty kind of took off?
Yeah, those were the real early days, but yeah, they took him on tour. That's how you got early exposure back then.
And then if you had that cosign, that kind of let people know, like, okay, this person co-signed this rapper, and it gives you that anticipation for that debut album, kind of like with Snoop. He was on Deep Cover with Dr. Dre and G
Right.
Thing, and that set him up perfectly for Doggy Style the following year.
Right. And like
Definitely.
Kane did it for Jay-Z. He would give up part of his set and let him come out and rock. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the way it was, man. Today ain't too much of that. But
No.
I always thought that was great. And it's a humble thing. And that's the way we should do. Put each other on.
Right.
Exactly.
And gotta give props to Jazzo. Jazzo, Hawaiian Sophie, the originators, putting Jay-Z in the game, and then Jay-Z did a feature on the original Flavor record, Can I Get Open? Shout out to Ski Beats, North Carolina native, first to put my home state on the map with his production work with Camp Low and Jay-Z, Reasonable Doubt. And it's just amazing to see how hip-hop has gone to where it started off in New York, expanded to the US, gone global, and to
Mm-hmm.
see Drake, how a rapper from Canada is the biggest artist in the world.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be that way though, because it's not just our art. It's supposed to expand and grow.
That's right.
And a lot of people would hate on Hammer. I don't. Because if you look at what Hammer was doing back in the early 90s, he was pushing pop numbers. Originally, he was selling his records out the trunk. Then once Capitol heard how much units he was moving by himself, they were like, hey, we want to offer you a deal. And once Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him came out, that opened the door for rap to go mainstream. And then later on down the line, we have Master P with No Limit, and then Cash Money with Baby and Slim, and how they just took their regionalized sound out of New Orleans, and how everybody knows now what bounce is. Everybody knows, what certain terminology, certain things are that was only confined to your region, but now it's available on a wider scale. Because if you think about what Master P did with No Limit in the deal he did with Priority, how he was able to tell them, I'm moving these units on my own. I want an 80-20 split. And if you don't know what an 80-20 is, that means you keep 80% and the labels get 20%. So when he put out I'm About It, he did it independent, funded out of pocket. So 2 million tapes at $10 a copy. Got to keep all of the money.
But you know what though? That it was discovered then that's the best way to do it. Make enough noise where they come after you instead of you going and hunting them down and begging and all that. Make them come after you because you make so much noise. And it's the same today on the internet. If you that
you got the
internet
leverage.
person, yeah, exactly. You got all them views, you got all that internet stuff going on. People like, who is this? Then they come after you. That's the way to do it.
Definitely.
Yeah, because that's what Prince was trying to tell everybody back in the early 90s when he was having his issues with Warner Brothers scrawling slave on his face, selling Crystal Ball on MPG.com. Do it yourself. You don't need a label. Do it yourself. You get to keep the money. You get to keep your publishing. And for those of you that are still trying to get signed to record labels, all I got to say is industry rule number 3080.
Yeah, shady.
Definitely.
Yeah. So how do you think record labels now are trying to survive in the digital age where, like we were stating, if you got your views, your impressions, or whatever metrics that you use to measure streams on, you can say, hey, I don't really need you anymore. I could do it on my own and put it out myself. I mean, look at what Tyler the Creator did, where he put out his stuff, no label backing, and still ended up winning the Grammy.
I mean, it's independence. You know, once you know better, you get older, you want to do everything kind of independent. But the only thing about being independent now is that the promotion dollar got to be high to get in a certain realm, a certain spotlight. So it's all about spending that promotional dollar too, that the label was writing those checks for. You got to do it. You get back most of the money, but you got to advance most of it too.
Right. You're going to spend.
Yeah.
You're going to spend.
And know that you're going to spend some money and it's going to go to the wrong cause. Like you're going to find out later by spending a lot of money, you could have saved a lot of money if you knew better.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me about the cut Assemble, which was produced by 45 King, Martin 45 King.
Assemble was pretty much a breakdown. It was breaking down everybody has a job to do, and that's the body. That's the body. The church is really us. We are the church. So it ain't
We
just a
make it.
building. Yeah, we make it. It's not a building you go to. We are the church, and everybody got a job to do. So a
Mm-hmm.
symbol was all about that, putting the pieces together. You do your job, he does his job, she does hers. Boom, boom, it comes together. That was a symbol. Um, that was a record that we felt, from the beginning, man. That track, it came on, and I know I said, man, I said, and I'm picky, man. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
picking the beats,
definitely,
man. Oh,
definitely,
it take me
definitely.
forever. It take me forever. Be tell you, man, it take me a minute. I say, no, I don't feel it, man. I don't feel it. But that thing
That's
came
true.
on, it was over. As soon as
And
I heard it,
the part was done quick too.
yeah, man,
Mhm.
it was easy. Piece of cake.
Man,
Mm-hmm.
that's
If the
that's
track is right, piece of cake.
yeah, that's crazy. And while we are talking about beats and production, I gotta mention Diddy and Bad Boy and how
Mm,
he was able to learn from Andre Harrell, may he rest in peace, when he was at Uptown. And
mhm.
once he got infamously fired from Uptown and he started his own label, Bad Boy. So, what was your take, 360, on the whole Bad Boy movement? What Diddy was able to do with Craig Mack, Biggie, Total, so on and so forth. And same question to you, B Down. Thoughts on Diddy and Bad Boy?
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead, B.
Big, Ready to Die was just. I mean, even with the Total Records, he was just creative. Um, he brought a nice party element to hip hop. So he got a stamp on the game. Big is probably one of the greatest ever.
Mm-hmm.
He went and found them.
Yeah.
Even I was watching even like old Total videos. Even with the fashion, they dressed a certain way. You gotta give him his respect and his due. He's a great businessman.
Definitely smart. How about you, 360? Thoughts on Diddy and Bad Boy and that whole
Well,
movement?
my thing with him is that hustle is unmatched.
Hmm.
When that dude took um what they call an intern job, no
Hmm.
pay, none of that, and he
From
jumped on the
Howard,
train. Yeah,
from
man.
Howard to New York. That's
Right,
like,
right.
whoo, and
That's
that was
that
back
that
back in
train,
the days.
right. And he
And take
did it
that
by
Amtrak.
train. Right,
Yeah, that's
right.
like 4 hours.
And
Yeah,
and, and
and it's crazy how he was so devoted. He was
mm,
taking trains to and from New York to DC. And then
right.
Andre Harrell told a story about how one of his first days of Diddy coming to the office, he told Diddy, "Hey, I need you to go take this tape to somewhere for me." And it was 10 blocks up, 10 blocks back. Instead of walking, he ran
Hmm.
both ways. And when Andre Harrell said, once I saw that he did that, I knew this kid was going to be a problem.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And that's
His
why
hustle was crazy.
he where he is, man. That listen, his heart and hustle is crazy. You ain't going
Mhm.
you're not gonna doubt him for that, because that's all
Nah.
day with him.
Mm,
All day.
no, no, no. I had a chance to interview Ivory Tab, who was a contestant on season 2 of I Want to Work for Diddy. And she
Hmm.
was saying how, his hustle, like you're saying, hustle and relentlessness, unmatched.
Hmm.
Whatever needs to be done, I'm going to go get it. And I
Yeah.
expect you to go get it as much as I went and got it. Because it's all
Right.
about you don't work, you don't eat. Let's get
Right.
it.
Hmm.
Let's work.
Nobody's
And
gonna give you nothing.
yeah, and what was your take on Jermaine Dupri, So Def, that whole movement with Escape and Crisscross, and how that laid the foundation along with the face for everything that was to come out of Atlanta?
Hmm.
Just another element, another movement. Hip hop, the music has always been about movements. JD go all the way back to breakdancing for Houdini on the Fresh Fresh tours.
Hmm.
So
Which was put
I
together
just
by his dad, not to cut you off, which was
hmm
put together by his dad, Michael Malden.
hmm so I just looked at it like he had the experience. He was around all the stuff. He was more experienced probably than a lot of us at an early age. With the good and the bad. So
Hmm.
it was their time, and you can't deny the music no matter where it's from.
And he also produced Silk Times Lover,
Hmm.
and definitely got to give JD his flowers for him to go seamlessly from Crisscross, Escape, TLC,
Everybody,
Mariah,
Right.
to
everybody.
Usher, to work with everybody and to still be well respected and well rounded. It's just crazy. And then
The Brat.
with New York, the Brat with New York hip hop, we mentioned Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out, Marley Marl, Mr. Magic. But there
Mm-hmm.
was a radio show out of, I believe, Columbia University that was done
Mm-hmm.
by two young men. And they had a lot of rap artists on either right before they got signed or as soon as they were signed to a label. I'm talking about
Barbito.
Stretch Armstrong and Barbito,
Barbito.
aka Cool Bob Love, aka
Mm-hmm.
Cucumber Slice. Ooh, ooh. So tell me
Yeah.
about the impact of Stretch Armstrong and Barbito and their radio show out of Columbia University.
Same thing, man. We would, I would go there because they was late night with it. They came
Yeah.
on. So back then I had to be to work at 6:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
So I would just go ahead and pop that tape on and wake up and just listen and just being amazed, like all the great people that came through there before they had deals and got on.
Yeah.
Just
Heat.
it's crazy.
Heat.
It's crazy.
Nothing but heat.
It motivated you. It
Mhm.
motivated you as an artist because you knew that you heard this is my competition. This is what I'm going up against. I got to make records that's on the same level as this.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
I knew
Go
whose
ahead.
show you was going. I knew whose show you was going to say immediately, man, because
Oh my God.
they put the groundwork in, man, and they had fire. I knew who you were going to say. That
Mm.
show was serious.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was a problem, and the thing was, it was on college radio at that, and like I said, they were making and breaking acts before they became household names. And
Mm.
you mentioned B Down about how it was like competition, where as soon as you heard that freestyle, you're like,
Mhm.
I need to step my game up. It's like when you're going to Rucker, Dykeman,
Mhm.
or insert whatever court here, you're trying to
Mhm.
get in on the run, but you
Mhm.
already got the team that's already winning, and you can't get on until loser loses and the next team
Mhm.
comes up. So it's almost like I got to go on the other court where nobody's shooting, get my reps in so that when it's my time to get on the court, I can bust some heads.
Mhm.
Right.
Definitely.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it definitely makes me miss, once again, that competition of I want to be better than this MC. How can I stand out from this MC? What is it that I can do individually or collectively if you're in a group situation to stand out? Because, De La was different from Cypress Hill. Laws of the Underground was different from Souls of Mischief. X
Mhm.
Clan was different from BDP. D
Mhm.
Nice was different from Red Kingpin. And it seems like that when you bring in major labels, and with most majors, they're very risk averse, where we want to do what's going to add to our bottom line so that when we go to our shareholders meeting in the fourth quarter, we can say our profit margins are up.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's kind of always been like that fine balance of how do I balance commerce and commercialism with independence. And I kind of think that's why, Fuji's took off, when Blended from Reality, which was their first album, didn't
Mhm.
really do much, but the score came out so gangbusters. And then we all know what happened to Lauryn Hill after that.
Yeah.
I
She
think,
fire. She
I think
fire.
too, with
Go ahead.
some artists, you grow musically, and that time might not be your time. And maybe that first album, once they did that Salaam Remy remix, I think it was Nappy Heads, they took off.
Mhm.
So they just grew as artists, and Lauren was like, oh my gosh, she was like the hottest thing going for a good minute.
For her to sing and spit.
Very talented and
And
act too.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course, she was in Sister Act 2, which,
Mm-hmm.
if you look back at it, Jennifer Love Hewitt was also in that movie. Ryan Toby, who later went on to be in City High, was in that movie. Tanya Blunt, who put out her own album off of Mercury, I believe. She was nothing to play with either.
Yeah, it's
Was
crazy.
fire. Was fire. It's crazy to
Crazy.
see like how much talent, came out during that one movie. And then we gotta mention Philly. Rough Riders, Eve, DJ Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince, Schoolie D, Three Times Dope,
Hilltop,
Hilltop.
Steady B. Shout
Mhm.
out to Steady B. Shout out
Mhm.
Tap Money. 3 Times Dope. All those guys.
Mhm.
And Philly, You know, nobody probably could have predicted that Will Smith would go from being the Fresh Prince to being Big Willie Summer, where every summer he was putting out blockbuster movies, and before that, he was putting out, you know, your friendly, tame family rap. You know, parents just understand, girls are nothing but trouble, summertime. Then crossed
Mhm.
over with Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and it's funny to see how him, Queen Latifah, LL Cool J, how they were able to
Ice T.
parlay Ice T, yes, how they were able to parlay their rap careers and expand it and build their brands beyond rap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was so dope how you were able to take one thing, spin it into something else. And I want to go back to 45 King for a minute. I had found a couple of years ago, he had did a not necessarily a remix, but he took Spread Love by Take Six and
Mm-hmm.
added the drums from Impeach the President by
Mm-hmm.
the Honey Drippers. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God, this is sick. And to
Genius.
know that he was behind that, I was
Yeah.
like, the why that wasn't a full record, it was just a break beat.
Like like everybody's saying, he's a genius. You know, he got even a whole bunch of just beats that nobody listened to. It's like, why this thing come out? Why that thing come out? He's a genius,
So you
and
mean
he's
to tell
quick.
me the 45 King is sitting on DAT's reels,
Yo,
cassettes of
definitely.
unreleased
Hmm.
material?
Hmm.
Well, unreleased beats that never came out. That I
Never came out.
definitely know for sure.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they ain't come out. He got stuff
Hmm.
that's just sitting.
Hmm.
Oh
Heat.
wow.
Yeah, heat.
Wow, heat. So I'm gonna ask you guys this question. What was the one artist or group rap wise that you felt had the talent and everything, but for reasons or another didn't blow up and should have?
Mm, mm,
Ones that fell through the cracks.
hmm.
Oh, I got one. I got one.
You got one,
Coogee,
B?
Coogee Rap. As much as a genius, as much as like lyrically he was that guy, he was so dope to me. He should have been selling 4 or 5 million.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, Coogee Rap, he's eating off the royalty checks from Poison. Shouts to BBD for sampling Poison and Poison. So I'm sure Coogee Rap is doing all right. How about for you, 360?
I got a couple in my Lord Finesse, AZ.
Ooh, ooh,
You know,
ooh,
these jokers could rock, bro. and and
ooh.
and you
Good
know,
ones.
yeah, I think they fell through the crack for sure.
Good
For,
ones.
for
Yeah.
me, I would have to say I thought Finesse and Sequence should have been bigger.
Mm,
I
They
remember
was
them. I
Yeah,
remember
they were
them.
signed to Uptown. They had the Soul Sisters record, Straight from the Soul. I thought Redhead Kingpin should have blown up more.
mm,
Definitely.
Yeah, he was
Definitely.
dope. And then had he not passed so soon, I thought Big L would have been huge.
yeah,
Ooh,
yeah. He was my next one.
ooh.
He was the next one I was about to say. Yeah, Big L is crazy.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Big L was no joke. I
Yep.
mean, the MVP record, dope record. And what was your guys' take on when you first heard Eminem? And did you think that Eminem was going to be a problem when you first heard him?
When I first heard him, I just thought he was just phenomenal. I knew immediately. Um, you kind of know when somebody stand out and different in their first 10 seconds of them around me.
Hmm.
I knew he was just
Hmm.
he was like woof, freaking nature.
Yeah, I thought his wordplay was crazy, and in an interview he was saying how crazy he thought Tretch was, and I was
He's a humble guy too. Like from the
yeah.
standpoint of showing love to his pioneers.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, you definitely got to respect where it starts. Now, on the flip side of that question, was there one artist or group that you thought was, nah, I ain't think that they was gonna do nothing, but they turned out to be huge?
Mm.
I can tell you mine's off top. I'm gonna go ahead and say mine's, and I'm not ashamed to say that I thought this person was only gonna have maybe one or two hits and then fade. I thought, for me, I thought Nelly was gonna be like a 1-2 hit wonder.
Ah,
Yeah,
ah.
I thought Country Grammar was a nice record. Had that little nursery rhyme down, down, baby on street, and then EI came out. But once Hot in Her came out, which samples Bustin' Loose by Chuck Brown, I was like, oh, Nelly is something serious. You know, that Nellyville album. So Nelly was my artist that I thought was gonna kind of fade eventually, but ended up being a problem.
I got one. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I'm gonna let Doc 3 go. You go first. But mine is y'all gonna be like, what?
Drawing the short straws on that one. Go ahead, 360.
I'm struggling. I'm struggling on that question, man, because nobody's coming to mind, man.
You know who is for me?
Who was it?
Oh my God, you're gonna be like, no, and they're like one of my favorite rap groups ever now. When I first heard EPMD,
what?
I did not like that Knick Knack Paddywhack.
Oh,
I did not.
You didn't like the Strictly Business album?
Nah.
No.
Wow.
What?
When they did the second one, business
was it business? Was it business as usual?
So what you saying? So what you saying was the song that shut me right up.
Now Eric Sermon doesn't get enough props as a producer. So shout out to Eric Sermon, the Green Eye Bandit.
Definitely. And they became my top 3 or 4 of all time.
And then, like how we mentioned earlier, you know, Redman, that was Redman's introduction into the game through EPMD, Hit Squad, him and K Solo. Yeah, so definitely big mentions to
Hit Squad was
EPMD.
Even Das Effect. Shout out Nocturnal, who's on our album too from Hit Squad.
Yeah, Das Effects I thought was dope. And we were talking about EPMD and everybody that was coming out of that camp. It was one person who I thought was dope. It had just entered my head, but it went out, but it eventually would come back to me. But that just goes to show you how deep the 90s were, where even if you weren't on the top tier, you were still dope. You know, like Young Black Teenagers, they had the record Tap the Bottle. DJ Scribble was their DJ.
MTV.
And Jamal, who was in Cameron, who played Jamal in House Party 2, was in Young Black Teenagers. And I thought that record was dope.
I think the Bomb Squad produced that record too. If I'm not mistaken.
Hank Shockley, Eric Shockley.
Eric Wright. I mean, Eric Sadler, excuse me.
Eric Sadler, excuse me. Yeah, and I thought Fu Snickens was dope.
They had a little run though. I think they got a gold album.
Yeah, with the What's Up Dot record with Shaq. What I heard was they wanted to get the Bugs Bunny vocal of What's Up Doc for that record, but for some reason Warner Brothers wouldn't give them the clearance. So I think that's why they had to do the hook like that, because they couldn't get the Warner Brothers clearance for the Bugs Bunny sample. I thought UMC's was dope. Leaders of the New School, dope. Black Sheep, dope. Chi Ali, dope. Digging in the Crates crew, I thought
all
that
of them
they
guys
were dope. Diamond D, dope. Now, what was your thoughts when you first heard Nas on that Live at the Barbecue main source with a this is probably or this is right around the time when you got a Flo Joe came out, Fat Joe, and then Akinelli.
No, Fat Joe wasn't on Live at the Barbecue.
Yes, he was. I think he was.
Fat Joe?
Yeah, I think Fat Joe was on Live at the Barbecue. I believe it was Nas, main source Nas. I think Fat Joe was on there.
You gonna have me? I gotta look.
After Nas, no. I don't know who go after, because
it was Joe Fatal.
Joe Fatal. That wasn't Fat Joe.
No, his name is Joe Fatal.
Okay, it was Joe Fatal. Excuse me. So Joe Fatal, not Fat Joe, on the Live at the Barbecue record.
I said after Nas went, I don't know nobody.
That was it for me.
But that just goes to show you how somebody stands out on the record the way you don't even remember who else was on the record. That's how much Nas stood out, and that set the stage for what was to come with Illmatic. And shout out goes to MC Search from Third Base, who's the one that kind of sort of laid the groundwork and kind of said, hey, you need to check this kid out. And Third Base, I thought was dope in their own right as well. The Cactus album, dope record.
Definitely.
Third Base. So tell me about any material that you guys got coming out, and when can we expect it?
We're working on it. Well, it's finished. It's not even we're working on it no more. It's called Still a Long Way to Go, and it'll be out in February. We're shooting a video next Saturday
Okay.
for the the second single.
Okay. All right. So who's behind the boards on the production?
Rashad Combs, who did a bunch of Ice Cube stuff. He did a Death Certificate and all that stuff. He's original, the boogeyman that was down with Pooh. Him, Granddaddy IU, 45 Kane, DJ Sue, this guy named Sean Turner. I think that's it that I could think of right now.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Doc, about the new album?
Fire, man.
It's heat.
Yeah.
We're gonna be dropping flex bombs when the album drops.
Yeah, man.
So many.
So many flex bombs.
Oh man. In the most humble way, man. It's phenomenal. It's a problem. It's gonna be a problem.
Ooh.
It's gonna be a problem.
Now, I want to get you guys out of here on this real quickly. Talk about that early 2000s period, which I feel was underrated in terms of New York hip hop. Dipset's run was so underrated. Mm-hmm. Don't get enough credit. Jewels. And look at the video that Cam just did of him freestyling not too long ago.
I saw that.
Killer Cam still got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that. It was dope. Mm-hmm. It was dope. And if you saw them do it live, it was even more, the visual was like crazy. It was crazy.
Right. Yeah, that whole Dipset, G-Unit era, then go down to Philly with State Property, with Freeway, Beanie Siegel, that whole movement. It was just insane. And then, of course, all of that branched from, Jigga, Jay-Z, to see where him, Dame Dash, and Kareem Biggs Burt was able to say, hey, you guys are not going to offer us a deal? Fine. We're going to form our own label. Name it Rockefeller. And to see how Jay-Z has transformed from being this to where he's at the level like a Dr. Dre or Kendrick Lamar, where you anticipate when he puts out something, because he's not out and exposing himself like that. And that's what makes, like say, artists like him, Dr. Dre, Kendrick Lamar, even his wife, Beyonce, so revered, because they do their thing quietly.
Yeah, you just mentioned Siegel though. Beanie Siegel, to me, man, that's one of my dudes there, boy, because he just it's something there that just triggers as soon as he start, and I say, yup, it's an MC to an MC thing where if you get a spark, somebody got a spark. Otherwise, you just say, this guy don't move me, he don't move me, but Siegel, nasty.
Yeah, nasty. And since we are, as taping up this podcast 4 days after election, we know Pennsylvania selected Biden. So everybody's getting Wawa subs, tasty cakes, Philly cheesesteaks. Everybody's an adopted Philadelphian right now, because we're all hyped for Philly right now. So before we close this interview, gentlemen, do you have any shout outs you want to give, and also plug your social media?
Org Music 360 is our Instagram. It's THE_ORG1 on Twitter, and you can like us on Facebook. Just the org. Just Google search it, it'll come up.
Yeah.
All right. How about for you, 360?
Just a big shout to producers that work with us. Shout out to family, friends, everybody that really was supportive on this journey. And
definitely,
we ain't gonna let y'all down in a few months.
All right, definitely that. And you can catch this interview on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcast. And the video version will be available on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/J85. And also be sure to go to facebook.com/Beyond the Album Cover to get updated with show news. Ladies and gentlemen, be down. Doc 360 from the rap group, The Org. Thank you guys for coming on and doing this interview.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate everything.